Investigative reporter Julian Sher has spent years researching bike gangs. He's also authored these books, The Road to Hell, How the Biker Gangs Are Conquering Canada, and also Angels of Death, Inside the Bikers' Global Crime Empire. And Julian Sher is right here in studio. We just heard from one of the investigating officers there in Waco, Texas, calling this a turf war, suggesting there were several bike gangs involved in a meeting. One of those gangs not invited to the meeting. But help me to understand who would have been involved in here, the gangs.
The most important name here is the Bandidos. Canadians will be familiar with the Bandidos because we're a Hells Angels country. The Hells Angels dominate Canada, but the Hells Angels dominate Canada because they crushed the Bandidos. It was the Bandidos and the Hells Angels who were responsible for those biker wars in Quebec. Remember, 160 people killed in the streets of Montreal in the 1990s. Canadians would also be more familiar with the Bandidos, how vicious they are, because the biggest single massacre in Ontario's history, 2006, small farmhouse, 8 members of the Bandidos wiped out, police argued, by one of their own. So this is a vicious gang. It's the #2 gang in the world after the Hells Angels, and they're based in Texas. They run Texas, they control Texas, and what police and biker members are saying is that some of the smaller gangs, kind of either the farm teams or puppet clubs or just the smaller rivals, were meeting at this restaurant along with the Bandidos, and there was a particular tension between one of the gangs called the Cossacks and the Bandidos. And the Bandidos just wanted to make sure that they continue to rule Texas, and they won't mess with anybody. They will take on anybody who threatens their dominance.
Now, would you call it something like a recruitment? Would the smaller gangs be wannabes? Some
of them are, but in this case, it appears to be a kind of negotiation where they call it a confederation, where they kind of map out the territory.
Right.
You know, what people have to realize is outlaw biker gangs, they're criminal organizations, but they're businesses. They're into drugs, they're into prostitution. So just like any other business, they'll say, okay, you take that street corner, we'll take this street corner. And the Bandidos have a global reach, unlike these smaller gangs, but that won't stop the smaller gangs from having these kinds of violent confrontations. What made Waco so bloody is people have to realize these guys are literally wearing uniforms. So the minute they see one of their soldiers in a firefight, they're all going to come to his rescue. That's why it escalates quickly into this kind of amazing explosion we saw of so many deaths and so many bullets flying around.
And this wasn't something held covertly. This was advertised. I mean, police sent out a memo expecting this to happen. As you know, there were about 24 officers who were at the scene before any shots were actually fired. They knew it was coming.
That's right.
But that befuddles me that, you know, they say, okay, well, we're meeting, and we're telling everybody we're meeting.
Because, you know, and this is what frustrates people. Biker gangs are not illegal. They can be declared criminal gangs. Doesn't make them illegal either in Canada or the U.S. Police have to do it case by case. But what makes the biker gangs so special, unlike the mafia, is they literally, as you can see, they wear uniforms saying, I'm a criminal. I'm a member of this gang, right? Members of the mafia don't walk around with a tattoo on their forehead saying, I'm a member of the mafia. The biker gangs do. And they're able to flaunt that power. That's what makes them so appealing to many criminals, because they strut in openly saying, I'm a member of the Bandidos. We are openly see ourselves as a law unto ourselves. That's what makes it so hard for police to infiltrate, to get the information, and to take down these gangs.
We know the Bandidos, as you mentioned, are in Montreal. So could this scenario that unraveled in Waco happen in Canada?
Unlikely in the sense that in Canada, the Hells Angels are so overpowering. What they're able to do is either crush the Bandidos through violence. In Alberta, they absorb many, many members. So for the moment, no, I wouldn't worry. The Hells Angels still control the Canadian territory. As they like to say, Canada is red and white, and it's not just the color of our flag. That being said, this is a global battle. The Bandidos have taken on the Hells Angels in Europe, in Australia. So yes, the Bandido chapters keep popping up. We've seen violence in the past here. In the end, though, I think it does force us in Canada to almost share our experience, because when I travel through the States, what's amazing is here in Canada, you say biker gangs, you say Hells Angels, people now, in part because of our work as journalists, in part because of the extreme violence we've seen, people in Canada generally accept them as the criminals they are. In the States, they're still seen as these lovable rascals, these rebels, these outlaws. So I think we can share some of our experience with the Americans and say, wake up and smell the coffee. These are bad dudes. They advertise themselves as bad dudes, and they're organized crime.
But Americans have to be listening. Final question for you, Julian. What are you watching for now? I wonder if there's a big chunk taken out of that Bandidos gang, because 170 people are being booked, and that's a lot of people, and they're still booking in Waco, Texas today.
The bad news is they'll recover quite easily. In Quebec, they would arrest 100 Hells Angels, put them into jail. They could easily find new recruits. This is a great recruitment poster for the Bandidos. Wow. We don't mess with anybody. We're the meanest of the mean. And they also have independent, autonomous chapters. So the Bandidos in Canada, the Bandidos in the Northeast United States, elsewhere in the States, are not affected by what's going on in Texas. So this will be a setback for sure, but the Bandidos will live to fight another day.
You haven't eased anything for me, Julian, but I do want to thank you for your time.
That's not my job.
That's right. Tell it like it is.
Tell it like it is.
Julian Sher, senior producer for CBC's The Fifth Estate.